All right, everybody. So my phone's about to die, but this is the 10th installment of our commentary to Italo Calvino's If on a Winter's Night a Traveler. We read the book, the short story of In a Network of Lines That Intersect. And then, so that was this amount right here. And then I read from the diary of Silas Flannery, who is one of these authors that in this story basically has been having some of his writings copied. We first kind of heard of this character when we were given word about the Sultana and how the Sultan was providing her with readings of this guy. And anyways, then this Marana character shows up and starts doing these basically blasphemous types of edits to all these works while he's like working for the Sultan and doing his own sort of thing, because he has a lot of interesting ideas as to what the truth is. He meets up with Silas Flannery and they have a conversation, and then Ludmilla meets up with Silas Flannery, and then I'm assuming it's our man meets up with Silas Flannery as well, trying to continue any story he can basically get his hands on now. But the story in which he has last read is this In a Network of Lines That Intersect. And this one's like a story about this billionaire who like is obsessed with mirrors and has a fascination and believes that mirrors can sort of reveal the truth. And the more mirrors that you can sort of project like an idea of a thing, the more that it is sort of like disseminated and basically becomes the point of everything sort of thing. And so in his sort of wonder and fascination with all these mirrors and kaleidoscopes and stuff like that, and the way he deals with everything in his life is based upon all these reflections. And he cites like some ancient Greek writers, who have these concepts about mirrors and things like that. Let's see if I can find one really quick. But it has a lot of very interesting words. Polydiptic. Some artists, Jesuit Athanasius Kircher. But it's all about this individual who just expresses everything in his life like a kaleidoscope. We learn how the kaleidoscope was patented. And there's a few characters in here that this billionaire is like, basically he has some women that he's cheating on his wife with. Oh yeah, polyphery. There's a few of them in here, but he like sets up all these elaborate plans because he says like a lot of people are after him. So he sets up stages of him being kidnapped. So he's working with the people that are kidnapping him, and then he sets up plans that discover him staging the plan to be kidnapped. And anyways, he's like doing all this sorts of stuff to just basically, you know what I mean? Like, what I was thinking while I was reading it was just like, it was like a man who was like trying to know everything, but he was like getting to that point where he was like looking in the reflection, but the reflection does end at some point. And I think that it's just like he just wanted it to continue on. But it's like looking at your face in a mirror, and it's like seeing yourself in your eyes kind of thing. It's like or like standing in a house of mirrors kind of, and then there's a mirror behind you and a mirror in front of you, but you can really only see like 13 reflections or something like that before it just becomes undiscernible at some certain length, you know. And I thought that was kind of interesting because it just felt to me like, I don't know, maybe he needed to see everything as a mirror kind of thing. It was like he was too obsessed with mirrors to not see the fact that it's like everything's sort of a mirror. And so I think like in a sort of way, it was just like he was unable to actually like take the reflection kind of one step further. It was just like everything had to be a mirror according to everybody else. You know what I mean? But it's like as soon as you can say like something is a reflection of you, or in that case like a representation, it's almost like the mirror's projection could never end, sort of thing. And it's like kind of reminds me of, it's like how much wealth can wealth really have, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Before I don't know, you don't really have wealth anymore. It's like you're missing something. It's like somebody who just counts dollars, you know what I mean? But it's like they have no character, or it's like their character is just somehow unable to grasp, you know what I mean, some type of like abstract concepts. And it's like they're trying to grasp onto what they can prove, more so than like being able to believe. And so that's kind of what I felt about that. I mean, it was very interesting and stuff like this, and this character is very interesting, and he's like buying up mirrors that at a certain time were certified to have magical properties and all this stuff. And then eventually like he gets put into like a room of mirrors from one of his own like kidnappings or something like that. Is like that he staged to make everyone think that he was being kidnapped so they wouldn't kidnap him or whatever, you know what I mean? He's like trying to think so far ahead. But at some point in time, it reminds me of like my thoughts on balance. It's like if you believe in balance, then you should be able to go as far as you want to. It's like if you just believe in it, then you should have almost no reservation to try to be balanced. It's like be one side and believe in balance. So anyways, he gets like taken into this room of mirrors that he's constructed because he like imagines all these things where it's like nobody can find him, and he can move and like through this space where nobody else can, and he can dodge and avoid everything, you know what I mean? But he gets in there, and then his like wife comes in or whatever, and it's his mistress is like in there, and she like freaks out, and then like his wife like comes in there with like a gun to like kill him, and then they all like lose sight of like where they don't know where the door is, like get out of like his like crazy house of mirrors or whatever. And then he just like falls down on the ground, and he's like, you know what I mean? Like he's like reached that sort of end of the reflection kind of thing, which is just, you know what I mean? It's like you're watching like, it's like all these characters, they're flawed characters, but that's kind of where their interest is a little bit. Like, you know, it's just such a interesting story. And then he has like some like moment to himself, you know what I mean, where he's like realizes something. He's like, now it seems to me that everything that surrounds me is a part of me, that I've managed to become the whole finally. But it's like if you know what I mean? You had a character that basically was not just so blunt or whatever. It's like we're watching every character fail and then become like, it's like the end of every story is like a character actually being able to be like the character, you know what I mean? Because it's like if somebody has true character, then it's like it's so hard to put into words the ideas of something that has the ability to basically change on a dime, you know, and not necessarily. And so maybe these are actually, maybe we as people are actually, you know what I mean, even more flawed. It's like somehow this is a median, and it's like maybe we read these and we think that these are flawed characters, but in a way it's like we're even more flawed than that, because it's like we have the ability to retain ourselves, but basically just sort of lose ourselves in an instant. And so it's like after every story, it's like you're coming back to yourself almost. This is very like sort of ingrained experience of going back to yourself. And then maybe outside of ourselves, it's that realizing that, you know, because he gets into this more in this next part, or this Diary of Silas Flannery or whatever, where it's like, you know, he talks about like he gets into this idea, these basically wild ideas about, you know, the abstraction of, he wants to say, let me see if I can find it really quick for you. He wants to say like, today it writes, just like today it rains, today it is windy. Only when it will come natural to me to use the verb write in the impersonal form will I be able to, that through me is expressed something less limited than the personality of an individual. Because he's like trying to like reduce his ego, because he doesn't want his writings to basically reflect some sort of character almost. He thinks that as soon as something has the less character, it's actually closer to the truth, kind of thing. And so he's trying to limit this like ego all the time, and he's, you know what I mean, just keeps saying that, like today it reads, you know. And he's tells a short story about like two writers. One is like tormented, one is like the mechanized writer, and then they both like find a lady reading because they're spying on each other, and then one of them tries to write like the other writer, and that writer tries to write like the other writer, and she's like, you both wrote the same thing, and then there's a gust of wind and it rearranges everything and produces like the most perfect novel to exist. And then he gives like multiple endings to the scenario or whatever, and but he fantasizes about, he writes a lot about this one reader that he sees, and he has this idea that it's like, as much as words mean something, they mean nothing. And he like imagines himself like, it's like I'm speaking to somebody right now as I'm writing, and he like goes to like write at that exact moment because he feels that it's like doing something. And then he imagines like, oh, but if it really did, then she would like throw the book away and like and cast it away, because it's like obviously something bad is going on. And then he meets with Marana, the guy who comes in and he's like, tells him all this stuff about people in Japan, like basically writing novels in his name because they say he's an easy writer to copy, kind of thing. And so all these books are being published like in his name in Japan, and so as that discussion with him. He went on expounding to me his theories, according to which the author of every book is a fictitious character, whom the existent author invents to make him the author of his fictions. I feel I can share many of his affirmations, but I was careful not to let him know this. He says he is interested in me chiefly for two reasons. First, because I am an author who can be faked, and second, because he thinks I have the gifts necessary to be a great faker, to create perfect apocrypha. And see, that's why then all of a sudden we're introduced for a moment of that whole like group that's in on trying to like spread either apocrypha or like other sort of writings or whatever. Then he goes on to talk about the Quran for a little bit and how the Quran is written, and to say like, when does something actually become like writing, you know, and sort of thing. It doesn't really say much about what his thoughts on the Quran are, other than he's just interested in the fact of how it's written, basically, and how people accept it as being like a written works. And then he has these like Boy Scouts or whatever he like meets, and they're like trying to communicate with aliens, and they're like they like say, and the thing is that he like, everything that this guy comes across, it just makes him like question things more and more and more, kind of thing. And I think that ultimately, you know what I mean, like if we were to typeface like what his personification of the real character is of every story, it's a question mark. You know what I mean? And he goes on to this whole thing about how he has a picture of Snoopy like sitting in front of him at his writing desk, where it says like, and it was a dark and stormy night, kind of thing or whatever. And it's just like, if you wanted to even do that even more, like just put a question mark there. He talks about like, could I produce a book that had just all those sort of ideas that contain the potential, but at the same point in time don't divulge and lose all the potential that the original statement had? Maybe you could just, you know what I mean? Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll just publish a book and all it is has a question mark on it and just full of question marks. Funny enough, right? That a couple people might buy it or whatever, you know what I mean? Certainly along those lines of whatever, and I can take more forward his ideas or whatever. And then we get into the place where Ludmilla is actually like wanted to go and meet this writer, but she doesn't want to meet people that she admires as authors, because she doesn't want them to be something that she didn't resemble. And then he tries to like basically rape her, I guess, or whatever, and she like throws a dictionary in between them, kind of thing. And she's like, and anyways, like they get out of that situation or whatever, and then all of a sudden she's just back to like talking to him like he's an author, kind of thing. And the guy talks about a little bit of like, he wants to be able to like, can I write a book that's specific to one thing, but then does it touch upon everything? But if I touch upon everything in a book, is it like writing, is that one book sort of, you know what I mean? Is that it or whatever? And he's like very, you know what I mean, sort of circular in this idea, but then trying to like pounce on any opposite at the moment that it sort of peeks its head into the point in which he could say that maybe the circle has begun or when it's ended, kind of thing, is what it strikes me as. Just, you know, is that how the type of the writing of one book is? Of the one book, is it written like that? Just like a collection of things. And then he talks to this one person who's like, takes all of his writings and puts them in a computer, and then it summarizes all the words in like a statistical sense, and she gains like a understanding of what the book is in like a split second or whatever. And then our guy shows up and finds him and is talking to him. He's like, oh, it's a publishing house in Japan. He's like, no, it's Murana that's been doing this the whole time. And he like shows him that last book that we read, you know what I mean, in a network of lines that intersect. And he's like, do you have the thing of this or whatever? And gives him a book or whatever kind of thing. But it's obviously a different thing again, on the carpet of leaves illuminated by the moon. But then he tells us a story there, how he was like, if I was to write a story, he's like, this is how I'd write a story of a thing that's like containing everything. And it's basically just a synopsis of this book kind of thing. And then we get like a little notation here that says, actually, it seems the reader really is about to leave. He will take with him On the Carpet of Leaves Illuminated by the Moon by Takakumi Ikoka to read on his journey. And so that's sort of, I'm guessing, like his salutation or whatever to this idea of all these things that he's kind of like collected in there. And, you know, from everything to like playing with words, like they have emotions themselves and represent some sort of theoretical like state of anything that we're all at a play of, and all of them basically play this game with each other, to saying that it's like, who knows where ideas come from, and interacting with people that say maybe it's from aliens, and so they're waiting for his next work. And then he even says like, I don't know, maybe it does come from aliens, or you know what I mean, or whatever. But it's just something like that I think has like true wealth, because you can sort of, you know, put at ease like so many things in your mind about life, in like realistically, once you come to the conclusion, it just, you know what I mean, how finicky life sort of is from the beginning. And you know, that there really is an idea of maybe it is sort of thing, you know. And the more it is, it's like, you really can just sort of, you know, maybe find what you're looking for, right? So there's other things in there as well. And he like, you know, talks about, there was an interesting part about where he was just saying, it was like what I kind of said the other day about somebody just, you know, changing their perspectives. And it was like everything could be just read differently, and then it changes everything. As soon as you just read it differently, it's like all of a sudden it's totally something else. It reminded me of what I said the other day, where I was just like, you know what, maybe we're just holding a line in our hands. It's like, you know what I mean? Like the space that is created, that all of a sudden creates these 2 pages or whatever. It's just, you know what I mean? It's like a line right there dividing everything. So yeah, we're gonna read that part next time, and I guess that we'll be done with this book here. So this time was more of a summary. I read more than I usually do, but I still feel like we got some good stuff in there. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time when we kind of put an end to this book here. And maybe we can reflect a little bit on like If there was one book, like, how would it read? You know? Is it boring? Or would it just be a line? Anyways.